Okay, so have you ever wondered what happens to, like, superstar journal editors after their term is up?
Mm,
Like, do they go on to publish even more or just vanish into university admin, you know?
right, right.
It's a question I bet keeps a lot of academics up at night.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So we're going to unpack that today.
That's a great topic, and there's a fascinating study published in the Academy of Management Learning and Education
Oh, really?
that tackled this head on.
Okay, so tell me about the study. What did they do?
Well, they followed the careers of 31 former editors
Wow.
from top management and organizational studies journals like,
Okay.
I think, Academy of Management Journal, Administrative Science Quarterly, the big leagues.
Yeah.
And they tracked all their activities for years after their editorship.
So, like, what were they looking at?
They didn't just look at journal articles.
That's
They looked at books, book
Okay.
chapters, presentations, even dissertation advising
Oh,
to
wow.
get a complete picture.
That's really thorough. So did they find that these editors just stopped doing research after all that editorial work?
You'd think so, right? I
Mm.
mean, all that time shepherding other people's research, it's
Yeah.
got to take a toll.
For sure.
But surprisingly, that wasn't the case.
Really?
Yeah.
So they were still publishing even with all the demands of their past roles?
Not only did they still publish,
Huh.
but in some cases, their output actually increased. So it
Wow.
really challenges that assumption we have that you have to choose between doing service for the field
Right.
and doing your own research.
That is surprising. What was it about these editors that allowed them to stay so productive?
One of the biggest factors was their involvement in professional organizations.
Mm.
The study found that editors who were active in those organizations,
Oh, yeah.
especially in leadership roles, tended to publish more books down the line.
So it's not just about finding the time to do the research.
Right.
It's about who you know and the connections you make.
Exactly. Those professional organizations give you access to a broader network of collaborators and expose you to new ideas that you might not encounter just staying in your own university bubble.
Now, this part is interesting to me because I always hear that university administrative roles are the real research killers.
Yeah.
Lots of faculty meetings, internal committees, paperwork.
Yeah.
It all adds up.
Right.
So I'm curious, what did this study say about the effect of taking on those kind of administrative roles after an editorship?
It's interesting you bring that up because the study actually found a bit of a mixed bag when it came to university administration.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
Well, while they didn't find it to be a complete research black hole,
Okay.
taking on significant administrative positions,
Right.
think department chair or associate dean,
Right.
was correlated with a slight decrease in research output.
So maybe not a total death knell for your research, but
Uh-huh.
definitely a potential drag on productivity.
It seems that way, yeah.
It does make you wonder why we see this difference between involvement in professional organizations
Yeah,
and university administration.
it's a good question.
Is it simply that university admin eats up more time than those professional roles?
It's likely more nuanced than just time management.
Okay.
The researchers connected their findings to a fascinating theory about cosmopolitan versus local academics. Think of like cosmopolitans as academics who are connected to broader networks and collaborations beyond their own university.
Okay.
And local academics, on the other hand, are more focused on their own institution and its internal dynamics.
Gotcha. So how does this theory relate to the findings about professional organizations in university administration?
Well, it seems that leadership roles in those professional organizations tend to push academics towards that cosmopolitan status. You know, they're
Wow.
interacting with people from all over, attending conferences, engaging in debates
Right.
on a national or even international level.
Whereas university administration kind of keeps you more focused on the day-to-day running of your department or your school.
Exactly. It's a
Yeah.
more inward-facing role, dealing with budgets, faculty issues, student concerns, all very important things,
Right.
but perhaps not as conducive to building those wider research networks.
So it sounds like being a cosmopolitan academic is good for your research career.
Yeah, that's what the data suggests.
Interesting.
Those wider networks translate into more opportunities for collaboration, exposure to new ideas,
Uh-huh.
and ultimately more publication.
So it's not just about time management.
Right.
It's about the type of activities you choose to engage in.
Yeah,
Some activities are more likely to connect you to a wider research community than others.
precisely.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
This study by Guinness and his colleagues
Yeah.
really highlights the importance of strategic engagement for academics.
Now, this whole conversation has really gotten me thinking about research impact. We've been talking about the quantity of publications, but what about the quality? Does taking on these different roles editorship, professional leadership, university administration
Yeah.
affect the kind of research these folks are doing?
That's a great question. And to be honest, it's a question that this particular study doesn't directly answer.
Oh, okay.
They focused on measurable outputs, number of articles, books, etc.,
Right.
not necessarily the impact or influence of that work.
It would be interesting to know, though, right?
Sure.
Like, if you're spreading yourself across different roles, editing committees, mentoring,
Yeah.
does that mean your individual research might be less groundbreaking or rigorous?
It's a possibility, trying to do it all could lead to spreading yourself too thin.
Uh-huh.
But it's also possible that those diverse experiences actually enrich someone's research.
Right.
Maybe those connections lead to more innovative ideas,
Yeah.
or the editorial experience sharpens their critical thinking skills. It's something to ponder for sure.
Yeah, it makes me wonder if there's a sweet spot, a balance, where you can contribute to the field in multiple ways
Right.
without sacrificing the quality of your own research.
I think that's a key takeaway from this study.
Yeah.
It's not an either-or situation.
Okay.
You can do good for your field and do well in your own research career.
I like that.
It just takes careful planning, prioritization, and maybe a bit of luck.
Yeah, it's encouraging.
Yeah.
Is there anything else from this study that we should highlight for our listener
Let me think.
before we wrap things up?
One thing that struck me is how they handled the inherent messiness of real-world data.
Hmm.
Not every academic keeps a perfectly complete CV.
Right.
And there are always outliers and variations that don't fit neatly into statistical models.
So they weren't trying to, like, shoehorn the data into a perfect little box.
Not at all.
Okay.
They embraced the complexities and used statistical techniques that were robust to those imperfections.
Interesting.
I think that's an important point for anyone who's trying to make sense of research findings. Real life is messy, and good research should reflect that.
All right, we've covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah, we have.
But before we go, I'd love to hear from our listener. What are your thoughts on all of this? What stood out to you about this research on journal editors? Did it challenge any of your assumptions about academic careers? What questions does it raise for you about, like, your own path and the choices you might make?
This research definitely paints a more nuanced picture than the old publish or perish mantra we often hear about academia.
It's more like contribute and thrive, right?
Exactly.
And it sounds like there are many ways to contribute,
Right.
not just through research.
Exactly. Don't feel like you have to choose just one path. Find what energizes you and where you can make a real difference, whether it's through research mentoring service to your profession or a combination of all of those.
And hey, maybe one day you'll be a former editor with a thriving research career, proving this study right.
That would be great.
So to recap what we've learned today, we took a deep dive into a study that tracked the research output of former journal editors.
Right.
And the big surprise, their research productivity didn't plummet, like some might assume.
No, it didn't.
In fact, for those who are active in professional organizations, their book publications actually increased after their editorship.
Yeah, that's right.
We also learned that taking on those big university administrative roles might lead to a slight dip in research, but it's not necessarily a career killer.
It's a trade-off.
Yeah.
The researchers even connected their findings to the idea of cosmopolitan versus local academics,
Right.
suggesting that building those wider professional networks might be a key ingredient for a long and fruitful research career.
So the takeaway is that editorship doesn't have to be the end of your research journey. It might even open up new avenues for impact and collaboration.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Now, before we let you go, we want to leave you with one final thought-provoking question to chew on.
Okay, hit me.
This study looked at quantity, the number of publications, but what about quality?
Right.
Does taking on these different roles, like being an editor, change the nature of the research itself?
That's a really good question.
Does it become more applied, more focused on practical problems because you're out there interacting with the real world? Or does it become more theoretical, drawing on the broader perspectives you gain from those leadership experiences?
It's worth thinking about.
That's something we encourage you to consider as you think about your own career path.
Definitely.
And hey, who knows? Maybe you'll even conduct your own research to answer these questions.
That's it for today's deep dive into the world of journal editors and their post-editorship careers. We hope you found it insightful.
And as always, we encourage you to keep learning, keep questioning, and keep diving deeper into the topics that fascinate you.
Until next time.